So let's talk. Just a few things I want to share tonight. I heard a very wise statement not long ago about, I'm sure most of you know by now that people are leaving evangelical churches in droves. Like, people are leaving. There's this misconception that if you leave the church, then you have left the faith, you have left Jesus. But a lot of people are leaving the faith as well. I have no problem with people leaving a lot of these false churches, but it's whenever you hear about people leaving the faith, it's because Christ has been so misrepresented, and just people have been traumatized in some of these churches. I kind of want to share a story about something I learned on TikTok. Anyway, a comment that I heard last week that was pretty wise was, we shouldn't be asking how to get people into the churches. We should be asking why people are leaving in the first place. It's important to listen to these voices that are leaving because they have been through some trauma. They have been through a lot. Many of these churches are misrepresenting Jesus, but Jesus said that he would be misrepresented. I heard a story on TikTok tonight. You can learn a lot on TikTok. It's not all, a lot of people diss TikTok, but I've actually learned a lot by listening to people's stories. I hear a lot of reasons why people leave the church. There was this one guy who was talking about, he was in a youth group with a young man. The young man devoted his entire life to this youth group. Like, he was hardcore into the youth group. Well, anyway, the young man ended up killing himself, and the mother was struggling with anger, and she was angry, and the church, anger is a natural response to grief. One part of the grieving response is anger. Okay, you're going to feel grief, you're going to feel sadness, you're going to feel bargaining, depression, you're going to feel a whole host of things. Okay, there's no handbook for how to grieve, but you're going to go through stages, and anger is part of a stage of grief. Well, anyway, he said that the mom was angry, and the church didn't like how she responded to her son's suicide. So the church actually accused this woman who just lost her son of having a spirit of anger. They accused her of, they just started slinging out all these terms to her, and instead of sitting with her in her grief, instead of just letting her mourn, instead of being there for her, instead of accepting her, instead of just loving her unconditionally, the church held up their stones to this woman who needed them the most, who needed their love. And so he said that did it for him. He said he was out, because this is what he witnessed in his church. And guys, when I hear stories like this, it breaks my heart. It breaks me, because it's just, this is one of the reasons why I speak out so hard against what I'm seeing in evangelical Christianity, because it is hurting people. A lot of people are so hurt by these churches. And instead of sitting with people, loving people, talking to people, trying to understand people, a lot of what I see from today's Christians is the modern day Pharisees. I see them with their stones, accusing people, always pointing the finger, always quick to argue, always quick to condemn. And it's just, people are seeing it and they're tired. They're tired. They see it for what it is now. They see the false sense of whatever it is. I've known Christians, guys, who get more upset over a cuss word, than they do over racism, poverty, starving children, xenophobia, any kind of phobia that involves another person. I've seen them get more upset over a cuss word. And I've seen them support political leaders who have no problem displaying a lack of morality. But if you say something, that church is going to condemn you. But they'll make excuses for political leaders that say things. They'll make excuses for people in power. Do you know how many times so many of these church leaders just get away with physical abuse? Do you know how many times they get away with so much because because people have put them on a pedestal? And it's just sickening. I made a video on my TikTok last week about the story behind Sinead O'Connor. I don't know who all's old enough to remember, but in the 90s, Sinead O'Connor was made famous by, she was on Saturday Night Live, and she had taken a picture of the Pope, and she tore it up in front of everybody. And she said, "Fight the real enemy." And like everybody was so angry at her after that. Like Joe Pesci had made a comment about, Joe Pesci had made a comment about slapping her across the face. People booed her, but it later came out that there was a story behind why she did that. In America, we didn't know much about abuses from the Catholic Church, but in Ireland at that time, it was becoming very well known. These secrets were coming out. And I read an article that said, like, Sinead O'Connor grew up in such a strict Catholic household that her mom would actually withhold food from her and lock her in a closet. And, I read something else. You feel free to fact check this. I read it, but I couldn't find the article again. But it was talking about how, as a teenager, Sinead O'Connor was sent to this Catholic boarding school where there was just rampant abuse. I mean, not only sexual abuse, but there was physical abuse. They basically treated these kids, used them for physical labor, abused them. They were extremely strict. The girls that were pregnant that were sent there, their babies would be ripped away from them. A lot of these girls would run away. There was just horrible, horrible stories coming out. And she lived some horrible things. But people got more upset over her tearing up a picture of a religious leader than they were about children getting assaulted. They were more upset over a religious picture getting torn than they were about sexual assault. Okay, this next statement might ruffle some feathers or whatever, but I remember, I always get so upset in the news whenever I read about police brutality. George Floyd, for instance. I was upset about that. Just so many stories about black men and women just being afraid to be pulled over by the police. I don't know what that's like. I don't. And then I remember, so many of my evangelical family and friends were so angry at Colin Kaepernick whenever he protested police brutality by taking a knee. They were more upset at Colin Kaepernick taking a knee than they were at police brutality, at black people dying at the hands of police officers. They were more upset at Colin Kaepernick than they were at police brutality. People are seeing this, and this is just one of the many reasons why people are leaving these churches. A lot of people were like, oh, he's disrespecting the flag, he's disrespecting the troops. But he was using, in my mind, what I saw was him using his freedom of speech to protest something that was wrong and that needs to be changed, and people just attacked him in the same way that they attacked Sinead O'Connor. I've seen Christians get upset over, like I said, cuss words, but they're not upset over things that actually matter. They're not listening to the voices that are leaving the churches and leaving the faith. They're not listening. Instead, they're labeling them and finding ways to dismiss them. I don't know if you've ever heard of a guy called Matt Chandler. A lot of there's a term in circles these days called deconstruction, okay? Where people deconstruct from toxic beliefs. Look, if you want to ask me about my deconstruction story, Jesus helped me to deconstruct from some toxic beliefs, okay? Tithing was the first domino to fall. Church attendance guilt was the second domino to fall. A lot of these churches, Jesus says he doesn't live in temples made with human hands, but every Sunday Christians flock to temples made with human hands and spend billions of dollars a year in these physical churches. Whenever the early church met in homes, they were a loving community, and it's just, we need to rethink church. But rethinking church is a part of what's called deconstruction or whatever. But anyway, there's this Christian trend going on where evangelicals are just demonizing Christians who are deconstructing. You know why? It's because they want them in these churches, because they're getting paid. They're getting money. So don't let terms like deconstruction make you afraid of listening to voices of why people are leaving the church. Because there's a lot of false teachings out there. Anyway, this is just me sharing some thoughts. I know I've probably shared all these thoughts before, but here we are again. I just don't get it. I just don't get it. People get this facade of religion that we have is just, it's a joke. It really is. People just using religion as an excuse to think they're superior to everyone else. People using religion as an excuse to just do the bare minimum, go to church, pay tithes, but yet ignore their neighbor, ignore the people around them, use their religion as an excuse to look down on everybody else, whenever that's just not even the ways of Jesus. It's just not. It's not the way of Jesus, who said, in all humility, consider others as better than yourself. It's not like the Jesus who told everyone to put down their stones. It's not like the Jesus who never said to tithe 10% of your money to a religious leader, but instead to help your fellow man. And anyway, yeah. Anyhow, I'm bored. I'm waiting on some food for my family, so I'm about to wrap it up. I just wanted to make a video. Alright, thanks.